Hi artists! Today I have a project for you that is we're going to have a few different parts in this project, and we'll be doing some drawing, but then if you have it available to you, we'll be doing some parts of it with wire. I'm going to show you how to do that, and it's based on the artwork of a man named Alexander Calder. So I have here a book, this is called Meet the Artist, Alexander Calder, and there's a whole series of these books that are Meet the Artist in a different person's name. But this tells us a little bit about this artist and kind of where he started and what inspired him. So we're going to work on this painting or this drawing after we go through and kind of look at a little bit of his work. So this is Meet the Artist, Alexander Calder, and it's put together by Patricia Geis. Okay, so Meet the Artist, and he did a lot of different kinds of artwork. He did a lot of primary and secondary colors, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So there's a little series of questions here. And information. He was born into a family of artists in Philadelphia in 1898. His father and his grandfather were both sculptors. So his father and his grandfather were artists. And his mother was a portrait painter. So he comes from a long line of artists. He studied art and engineering. There's a lot of art that goes into engineering. So like if you're somebody that wants to build bridges or that wants to engineer, the way buildings go together, an architect can be an artist. But you also need engineers that understand art and architecture. There's all different kinds of engineering, but a lot of different types of engineering require an artist's work, or maybe they don't always require it, but it's definitely very interesting when artists and engineers can work together. Alexander Calder loved his family. He loved having parties with his artist friends. He used to wear red flannel shirts and dust-covered shoes, and his pockets were always full of things. So here is a little picture of him. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but that's a picture of him from 1954. So he was about 55, maybe 60, almost 60 years old, and that, not quite. Red was his favorite color. It says here he became famous thanks to his invention of mobiles, which are sculptures in motion. So you may have seen on a baby's crib a little thing that hangs over it, and it has sometimes little stuffed animals or something that move around. Mobiles are something that he invented. So that was part of the engineering, was figuring out if you have one piece and you have all of one wire, one piece that's hanging down, and then you have all of these things that are coming off of it at different angles, and they have different weights. He had to figure out how to engineer what was going to balance this big heavy piece out over here with a little light piece over here. He had to figure out all kinds of things that went on with that. So here's a little picture of one of his mobiles. Let's see. I think you guys can probably see that in the video. And then he also created stabiles, which are static sculptures made out of sheet metal. And so here's a little picture of some different stables. You can see a black one here in the front, and in the background there is a red one. He created toys. He painted pictures, designed jewelry, and decorated the first art car, as well as airplanes. So here's an art car. So it looks like a toy car, but it's not. It's a real car. And he designed the paint job on that. He also started designing airplanes for an airline called Braniff Airlines. And now we have a lot of artists that do work for the airline industry. All right, so he grew up in a very creative atmosphere. When he was only 8 years old, he was given his first tool set. So younger than some of you guys, he was given a set of tools, and he created these little brass sculptures. And he liked making things move. So like this one would have been a little rocking duck kind of thing. He made toys for his younger sister, and jewelry for his sister's dolls. This little dog and this little duck were things that he made out of a sheet of bent brass, and he gave them to his parents one year for Christmas, which I think is a very sweet thing to do. Here are some other toys that he made. He liked making those little pull toys that you see. Sometimes you see little kids walking with little toys when they're learning how to walk that wiggle and move. So he started doing those. And like, so his frog would have hopped, the bear would have rolled along behind the little push cart, and the fish, probably that little tail moved like this one did. And then he also made a circus. So this is a circus, and he would make these things even as an adult. He would make these little toys, and then he would have all kinds of little figures that he had made to go along with it. I'll show you the picture of it. So there's all these little figures, and he was making these things even as an adult, and having other adults play with them and do all kinds of fun things. He made wire sculptures. So this is a wire sculpture of a dancer named Josephine Baker. And so the book here has this little chain, which I can't really do anything with it when I'm showing you the book. Mike can show you later. But he would often do these sculptures in wire, and it kind of looks like one continuous piece of wire that he has figured out how to shape and make different people. Sometimes it was just their heads, sometimes it was their whole body that he would make a sculpture in wire. And then this is one of his stables, or at least a model of it, a paper model. This is a huge sculpture. I believe it's in New York at Madison Avenue and 57th Street. There's one, I believe, in Chicago. I know that there are some up at the museum in Los Angeles. And so he was doing a lot of different kinds of sculptures. And then sometimes he would make artwork just using found objects. So this is a little picture of what, you could look around and find. You could find tin cans, you could find clothespins, all different kinds of things that you could use to make some sort of sculpture or art project out of things that you have available to you. And here is a picture of one of his paintings. So he really did like red. That was his very favorite color. But he used lots and lots of bright colors, lots of different kinds of ideas. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to draw. We're going to do a drawing where we keep our pen on the paper the whole entire time. It never leaves the paper. And we will do self-portraits. So we're going to draw, and it's always kind of funny to see how they turn out. We'll do it using one pen. And then we will also do one where we're holding a pen in each hand, and you have to draw with both hands at the same time. That's always kind of a little bit crazy. And then our final project, if you have it available, and I'll show you some different kinds of wire that you can use to create a wire sculpture self-portrait. You can use anything that you have available to you. You could even do it in string. You could kind of glue it down in string if you didn't have wire available to you. So I'll show you some different ways of making this wire sculpture. And we should have a lot of fun. I hope you guys can post some pictures somehow so that I can see them, because I'd love to see what you come up with. Okay, so now that we've looked at this book, Meet the Artist, Alexander Calder, and we looked at the wire sculpture that he has, this one of Josephine Baker. In the book, it gives this little chain where you can kind of take it and try to figure out how you would do a wire sculpture. So if I were to try to take this, and I could do kind of an eye like that, and kind of a nose, and then maybe I could figure out a way to do a mouth. The chain is a little tricky because it keeps wanting to kind of wiggle around, right? But that's almost kind of a little face. There's a little bit of an eye shape in there, nose shape, a little bit of a mouth shape, and then kind of a funny little chin. It's a little hard to get too much more out of this, but we're going to do some work today that's going to let us have a little bit of fun with a self-portrait. So the first one that we're going to do, that I'm going to do with you guys, and here are some versions of a portrait. Now, this definitely does not look like me. This doesn't really look like me either. But the first one that we're going to do is one that we are going to draw where we never pick our pen up off of the paper. So to do that, if I'm doing a picture of myself or of somebody, and I put my pen down, once I put my pen down, I never lift it up. So I've got to think about my features. So usually if I'm in the class, what I tell people to do is take their finger and trace around the shape of their face. Their shape is kind of an oval. Then maybe come down the middle, and you've got your nose that goes down to your lips, that goes down to your chin. Come back up along your nose and go out to the side. You've got an eyebrow, you've got those oval shapes for your eyes. So if I do the same kind of thing with my pen, I take my pen and I draw kind of, oops, sorry, didn't mean to pick up my pen. I draw kind of an oval shape, right? But maybe when I come back up around over on this side, I can draw sort of an ear shape coming out and over. That's kind of a large ear, but that's okay. Then I can bring that in and I can make an eyebrow, come down and make a nose shape, come down again, make kind of a mouth shape. And I'm not saying that you can't bring your pen back over a line. Obviously, I am doing that, right? So then if I come back up along this nose and I come over here, I can do an eye shape, right? Come up from that eye shape, oops, sorry. Come up from that eye shape, do an eyebrow. And then I can either come back down along that line, or I could go across on the other side, do my other eye shape. Okay. Now I don't have any hair yet, so I've got to think about what kind of hair. If I'm going to have long hair, then maybe I come up this way and I come down. I can bring it in, I can bring it back out. I can do kind of long hair like this. If I have bangs that come in across like that, I could do some bangs. Maybe I have an ear that I see over on this side, maybe I don't. But my pen is never leaving the paper. It's like it's glued down. Oops, sorry. It did leave the paper just for a second. Right? so there's a sort of self-portrait. I'll do another one. I'm going to use a different pen because that one was a little bit too thin for this. So, all right, this one might be a little bit, well, there we go. That might be a good pen. So this one time, I'm going to take my pen. Again, I'm going to never, or try to never leave the page. It's a little bit tricky, I know, with this video because my hand covers up a lot of it. But this time I'm going to start with my hairline, or a hairline, right? And I'm going to come down and I'm going to make the chin. Okay. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to make an eyebrow. I'm going to come across a little bit and make another eyebrow. Come down from the eye. And I can either make it be a full almond shape like this, or I can be just part of one. Okay, so then I come back over here and I do the same thing. So our eyes kind of have that almond shape with the circle inside. And then if I want to, I can either come back up or I can come down. This one I had done sort of a sideways nose. This time I'm going to do kind of the full front of the nose. All right, and I usually come down from the nose to the mouth. There have been some times when I have come in from the side, and that's kind of a fun one. Okay, so there's the face, right? Now I've got to figure out how I want to get back out to my ears and the rest of my hair. I can go back up the same line. It's kind of like doing an Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if you guys have ever played with Etch-a-Sketches or not, but they are a lot of fun. Okay, so now I can do the rest of the hair. Okay, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the portrait. That one's not so bad. This one was a little bit goofy looking, but you know, I could turn, if I don't like that, I could turn it over this way, and maybe this time I'm going to start with the mouth. And then I can come from the mouth down to the chin. And up across the forehead. And then over here I have an ear. Okay. And then come back up. I can do an eyebrow. Right? I'm going to come across. I'm going to do the other eyebrow. And I'm going to come underneath and do the eye that way this time. If I want to put eyelashes on, I could certainly do that. Come over here, do an eye. Oh, it's a much bigger eye, isn't it? Oh well, that's all right. It's really kind of an exercise in making your brain think a little bit differently. Okay, so now I have the face. So I gotta think about how to get back out. I wanna finish my hair, unless I'm bald, which maybe I am, but I'm not. So this time, come in and I'm going to let it come across a little bit. My hair might be a little bit knotted. That's all right. So those are different types of self-portraits that you can do, and it's just a fun thing to kind of practice. One thing that we didn't do, and I could have done if I kept, I'm going to keep my pen here so that I could come in and I could give myself a shoulder line. Right? That would have come off. This kind of looks like there is one, but it would come off like that. So that's a different way of doing it. So each and every time you do this, it can be a different look. It can be a different feeling. You know, if you have short hair, but a little bit longer than the person that I just did, this is going to look a little bit crazy because I wasn't really thinking too much about what I was doing first. Okay, so I could do kind of like a profile view, right? Not a full profile, but a little bit. So it looks like there's just a little bit of an ear over there that you can see. Okay, and maybe might see some of that side of the nose. Okay, so that's another one. So they're all just kind of fun, silly ways to think about. Oh, I could have kept my pen on the paper and done a little bit of hair over on this side. And again, you know, kind of doing some of those lines, not too many lines, but some lines in it make it look a little bit more hair-like. This would be one that would be a good one for a little bit of you know, a neck coming down that comes into a shoulder. Your neck would come down from here, like that. So lots of different ways of doing that. The next one is the one that's really pretty funny. I like doing these. Kids always have fun with it. But this one uses both your hands at the same time. So you're going to need 2 pens. And I like doing it in 2 different colors so I can really see which hand is doing which thing. But you're going to have, because you're using both hands to draw, you're going to have to tape your paper down to the table probably. But for this one, what I like to do is, and you can pick your pen up on this one. You don't have to keep it stuck to the table. But for this one, you draw, let me get a different pen. Maybe the blue will show up pretty well. You draw with both hands at the same time. So I'm drawing 2 eyes and eyebrows. I'm gonna think about my hair. Right now it kind of looks almost kind of monster-like, but you know. Draw the nose. Draw the mouth. Okay. This one was a really wide one. I kind of went off my paper, didn't I? Okay, that's one. we'll do a second one just kind of for fun to look at it. And I'll show you some that I did before. And this time I'll do it in a different kind of marker. Let's see if that works a little bit better. It's a thicker marker, but I'll try to take up less space somehow with it. So I've got red and black. Okay, so this time I'm going to draw the nose first. And out for the nose come the eyebrows. Okay, then the eyes. And I want to give myself eyebrow or eyelashes I can. I can, instead of the spiky hair, I could have kind of bangs, right? Can have a chin. Have to have a chin. Everybody has a chin of some sort. Okay, and here's my hair. All right, so there is a second two-handed portrait. I don't know that it's a self-portrait. I hope that it doesn't look too much like me, but you never know. There's another one, the one that I did earlier. And then these are some of the ones that I did prior to this, okay? So it just makes your brain think a little bit differently to use both hands at the same time in drawing. It's kind of a fun exercise. It's just kind of for fun. It's not really going to lead you to being a fine artist, although you never know. Everybody kind of has their own opinions. The last thing that I'm going to show you is an optional thing. It's a lot of fun, I think, but it is a little bit tricky. We're going to make a portrait in wire. So I have here one that I did the other day. And then I also have here some wire and wire cutters. So I have some wire cutters, and this is floral wire. So, and I have some coat hangers, which you could try, but they're really hard because the wire in the coat hanger is really stiff. So I have this one, and I was bending it, and you can. I have done it, but it is a lot harder on your hands to try to bend that. So, and it's a lot harder to cut with the wire cutters. And this is just assuming that you have wire cutters at home and wire at home. The floral wire, which is a thinner wire you can get anywhere at Walmart, at Michael's, and you can bend it pretty easily, okay? But the idea is that we're going to try to make a head out of wire, and I'll show you some of the other things that I have made out of wire, but you can make just about anything. So when your wire comes off of the spool, if it's like the kind of spool that I have, it's got a lot of little bends in it. So to manage that, what I have to do is kind of straighten it out. So here's my wire. I'm going to cut a little bit of it off, okay? And I'm going to have to straighten it. So that means I have my fingers underneath, my thumb on top, and I just kind of go along and smooth out those bends, okay? some wire comes on a spool, so it's a little bit different, but it will still have some kind of rounded bends to it. All right, this is just green floral wire. I've got lots of different kinds of wire around my house. Some of you may not. And if you don't, this is just kind of an optional thing. You don't have to do this. But if you after you kind of get the first set of bends out, just kind of straighten it out in your fingers like that so that it's going to have a curve to it, but it's not going to be quite so bent. Then you're going to try to figure out how to make a face. So if this is my wire, I usually think about the forehead first. So I'm going to start kind of up at the top, and I'm going to kind of widen that curve a little bit by just kind of stretching it, okay? Then I'm going to come down on one side, and I need to think about that chin. So I want to kind of put a little bit more fold into it. I'm not making it a nice tight fold, just a little bit. Then I can come up along the side over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one wire, and I'm going to kind of wrap it a little bit around the other wire, and that's going to help it kind of stay in place and keep that outside shape, right? And if you wanted to, you could use some tape to kind of help keep it in place, okay? So then I take this one and I come across, okay, come across, and then I can have to untangle it here, come across, and I can make an eyebrow, and I come down, and I can make that nose, kind of a hook nose shape like that. And these are they get a little bit crazy. This wire isn't the best for it. If we were doing this in a classroom, I have what's called armature wire, which is for building stuff like this. But I can come down, and then I can come down from that nose, and I can try to make a little bit of a mouth. Okay. And then I do already have another piece of wire over here, so I've cut one. So I'm gonna do the same thing. But I'm gonna kind of twist it on here a little bit, right? So that it stays in place like that. Okay. And then I'm gonna bring that over. So I have to hold it down and kind of fold that over. Make the other eyebrow. And then it can kind of come down. And it's basically the other. Thank you. So for this last part of the project, we're going to be making a little wire sculpture if you have the wire and want to. You don't have to do this part if you don't have wire available to you, but what I use for it is the floral wire. You can get it at Michael's, you can get it at Walmart. It's just a really thin, easy to use wire. I have tried using a coat hanger, and that really did not go very well, because the coat hanger, although you can bend it with just your hands, it's making the curves to do a face, which is what we're going to be trying to do. It's pretty hard with the coat hanger wire. So I have here a little bit of a length of piece, and then I'm going to get some more off of my piece here. So I'm going to untwist it, and it ends up with these kind of little kinks in it because it's folded pretty tightly around the spool. So I'm going to show you how to get those out, and then we will work on making our maybe a face. Kind of looks like a face, kind of doesn't, but they're fun just to try and do. And then I'll show you some other things that I have made out of wire before. So to get the little kinks out, I just want to put my fingers under it kind of lightly and press down kind of lightly with my thumb. And I'm going to go ahead and do that kind of all along the wire to get as many of those little fold lines out as I can. That'll just kind of help it stay a little bit smoother. Okay, so I'm going to do that both directions. And it has kind of a curve to it, but that's okay because we're going to put some curves into it anyway. All right, so this is a pretty long piece. This is probably about 6 feet long or so. So then we take our wire. I've got my wire here. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to start probably at the forehead is probably the easiest place to start. So I want to kind of start not exactly in the middle, but close to the middle. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to spread from my thumbs out, kind of a line going across the top like that. Okay. Then coming down from that, I'm going to kind of, again, keep smoothing my hand along the wire. And I'm going to start bending it back up. So that's going to give me kind of a chin sort of shape. These are not perfect, right? This isn't really going to look like me. But the next thing I can do is I can take my wire and kind of wrap it a little, just once or twice around over here, to kind of secure it so that it's not going too all over the place. Okay, so I've got one there. Then if I want to, I only have a little bit left, so maybe I just bring that piece across like that, right? And then that gives me wire to wrap around here. If I wanted to, if I had more wire, I might try to do the eyes or something like that. And that's also kind of changing my face shape. That's okay too, right? So now I've got my wire going across. And then I have this wire over here. So with this wire over here, I'm going to come in. And I've got it upside down. I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of shape in what I think of as an eyebrow. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to shape in what might be kind of a nose shape. It's not really a nose shape, but it's kind of, it gives the idea of a nose, right? Then I come back up and go across and I get the other. I'm turning it around again, right? Kind of get that other sort of an eyebrow kind of shape in. Now that I have two sort of eyebrow shapes and a nose shape in, I'm going to again sort of twist my wire around just a little bit, not a lot, just maybe once around, all the way around. Okay, so then that kind of keeps that in place. And if I want to change this a little bit, if I want to make the nose a little more narrow, I can do that. If I want to kind of pinch it in a little bit, I can't do major changes with it, but I can change it a little bit if I want to. So now I have this piece coming down and I'm going to kind of take it and I'm going to have it come in and make, well, you know what, actually before I come down to the mouth, I'm going to take this up. And it's just kind of about playing with the wire a little bit, right? Every time I do these, it's a little bit different. Wire doesn't always, for me anyway, bend exactly the way I would like for it to. And so now I've got an eye here, okay? And the more I kind of work with it, the more it kind of bends. Now, if I were to take my wire and do a really, and I'm doing this with the other one, put a really sharp bend into it, that's a really hard thing to try to get out. This wire is not too bad, but you can see here, this one's going to be really hard for me to try to get that bend out. It's not a big deal if I have it there, but it's just, it makes it a little bit harder. All right, so I've got this kind of eye shape in, so I can come across and I can do the same idea, right? So there's that eye shape. So I'm going to kind of come across, and it's all about manipulating with your hands how the wire goes. Okay. I'm going to bring that one across over here. And then look, that's a pretty good 2 eyes and a nose. And I'm just going to let that one finish off down here at the bottom. Now I have a second piece of wire here. This one I have already kind of straightened out for the most part. So I think with this one, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to make a little mouth shape just with it, and then I'll take the ends of it and twist it onto the original one. So here's kind of that curve for the bottom of the mouth, right? Okay, and then I can take it and I can kind of bend it in, right? Like that. Twist that around here. Okay. And then with this one, I can come across, and if I want to do that sort of upper lip shape, I come across like that. Okay. So it doesn't really look too much like a mouth there, but I'm going to loop this in here so that I can do that sort of little twist. And this isn't easy, you guys, just so you know. It's not an easy project. It's a fun project. It's kind of a silly project, but it's not exactly easy. So now I have this, right, for my mouth. Okay, and I could leave it like that if I want to. That's not too bad. Okay, or I could kind of manipulate the wires a little bit more and give it sort of that upper lip shape. Okay, now from this piece, from this edge, I'm going to take it and I'm going to wire it on here, and I can cut some of this off if I have too much. Okay, so I'm going to wire that, twist that on like that, and then yeah, I think I'll just cut that little bit off. Okay, the cut wires are a little bit sharp. They're not super sharp. It's not going to kill you, but if you're not careful, it can kind of scratch you a little bit. Okay, so there's one, and then here's the other side, and again, this is going to be too long, so I'm going to cut some of that off, and I'm going to wire the mouth onto the face. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now I have kind of a little face. If I wanted to take some of my extra wire and do some hair, some years I've had students that have wired the hair on by taking a piece and just sort of wrapping it around a couple of times. You could totally do that, right? And then kind of got some hair coming down on either side if you wanted longer hair, or if you want more of an ear, you could go through and you could make ears on the side. This is just kind of silly, but I am going to show you a couple of other things that I've done in wire in past years at home. So here I have a little, kind of like a little butterfly, right? So I did a loop and I twisted the wire back on itself really nice and tight. I'll do that with some of this wire. So off this piece here. So I made like a little circle around my finger like that, and then twisted this together really nice and tight. So that kind of makes the kind of a stiff body part for the little butterfly. And then I took other pieces of wire and folded them, bent them into wings, and this little piece here makes it wrap onto my my lamp. And then I have a little flower that I did at one point. So you can see it's standing on a stand. Okay, so we're looking down on it right now. But you can see I took several pieces of wire and looped them together and kind of tied them all in the middle. And then I made some leaves by doing a loop and then twisting a straight piece into the middle of it. There's lots and lots of different kinds of things that you can make with really basic, simple wire, and the floral wire is definitely one that I suggest starting with because it's not very expensive and it's pretty easy to bend and manipulate, and you get a lot of it on one of those rolls. So if you want to make a little wire sculpture face, you can. If you want to do something different, like a little butterfly or like a flower, or I've had kids make dinosaurs before, and I've had kids make balloons, hot air balloons, all different kinds of fun little stuff. Those are some neat little things that you can do with wire. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will talk to you soon.